Here we go. Okay, great. Yeah. So welcome to our session about real-time performance testing for Power Platform Azure. My name is Robert, and today I would like to guide you through different scenarios where we basically trace down root cause of problems, where we have some issues within our platform. Today, this session is a little bit focused on the technical part, but of course, we'll talk about the business impact as well. So I will take a closer look at different tools and how we can analyze that on a high level, but also to figure out, okay, what is the actual root cause of the problem, especially if you have a large environment with a lot of code, a lot of different components. We'll basically have a specific event and try to figure out what's going on behind the scenes. And that's why I would like to show you different cases here. So let's take a look at the agenda for today. Yes, as I already said, I will give you a quick introduction to our platform, Process Insights, which is an analytics platform focused, of course, for Power Platform, but also for Azure components like Azure Functions and so on. So different code-based and no-code-based components. So we can analyze the different components and see what's going on without actually executing that. There's a real good benefit for that, especially if you have a large environment and you cannot test it in production. Yeah. So this is one thing we would like to do today. And also identify problematic patterns. So this is more focused on the best practice side, but of course, there's always a dependency between performance issues and best practice analytics. So at the end, there's a combination of both things, and we have to take a closer look at those things as well. And yes, there will also be a demo session. So we will have a live session where we can analyze a specific use case and figure out, okay, what's going on. Yeah, of course, this is a very simple one, so we don't need a very big enterprise use case here. So we just start with a very simple one, and then we can basically add additional stuff step by step. And then a few organizational things and Q&A at the end. As always, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We will take a closer look at that later on. But for now, we will basically postpone the questions until the end, and then we can answer that. Okay. Quick info for those of you who don't know us. We are Kupp software based in Austria, and we are an ISV focused on logic optimization and quality analytics and so on. So we have a couple of different tools to simplify the life of developers, but also architects and so on. So today we are focused on the platform where we can analyze the system without changing code and stuff like that. So we basically have one platform where we have a good overview of different components in Azure and Power Platform and so on. So we would like to see what's going on without executing code. But of course, the second step is also that we will execute code and we will see live what's going on. Yeah, so this is more or less focused on the performance analytics part. And as always, CI/CD components and so on is not interested today, but as I said, best practice is always a topic. So best practice analytics is basically related to all of those topics. But for today, it's performance and best practice analytics only. And yeah, the first part, so the introduction to Kupp Process Insights. I will show you later on how it looks like, how it can be configured and so on, because the most important part is, okay, it should be simple, right? So I've seen that so many times in different projects that they have a lot of tools, but the setup is pretty expensive. Yeah, you have to do a lot of different things and also compliance and so on. So that's why I would like to show you how easy it is to do that with our platform. Where you can get a high-level overview, but also a very detailed code-level-based overview, okay, and to see what's going on. Yeah, so we will see all of those things later on. Quick introduction to application insights and Dataverse, and that's a very interesting one because many of you already know, okay, application insights is a very powerful tool. Also, you can integrate it to Dataverse, and then you will see what's going on. Yeah, but the problem is when you have figured out, okay, this is the specific call, you would like to see, okay, how can you repair that? Yeah, and then you usually need more details, and that's the point where you don't have any additional details, and you need to start some other things. Yeah, and that's why I would like to also show you some tools how we can do that. And preview is a small screenshot where we'll see what's going on and what we will see in the live session. So that's basically a preview to the other slides. And the scope, yeah, so what our platform does for you and how the different features have dependencies to each other. So yeah, as I said, Kupp Process Insights is a software as a service platform where you can connect to different systems. So for example, you have Azure DevOps because you need the source code for that, but you can also connect to your Azure platform, different subscriptions or resource group, whatever, and especially Dataverse. And that's the focus for today, because we would like to see, okay, what's going on in Dataverse and if there's any connections to different environments, for example, for service bus and so on. I mean, when we talk about performance, usually we don't care about async processes, right? Yes, in the background, there could be something and we have to analyze that as well. But for today, let's say a very simple use case, when the users are complaining, we have some issues with performance. Let's take a look at that. And this is why we only take a look at the synchronous processes. So we can skip all of the integrations via service bus and so on. But this is just a hint what our platform does. And now the first part is, I think I already mentioned that before, yeah, application insights is a very good thing. Yeah, so we will see, okay, what's going on. We have a very good overview, but the next steps would be, okay, how we can fix that. And that's the point, as I said, where we have to take a closer look at that. But for now, the simple screenshot, I took it from the Microsoft documentation. So this is just some random system here. But as you guys can see, okay, we're on the server side here. We have a couple of interesting calls, and we see, okay, this call is very fast. This one is useless because we don't have minimum executions there. So at the end, you can decide, okay, what is important or what is not important. But so for example, if we close an incident, or you can see it here with get account, this will retrieve some stuff here. It's pretty fast, but let's assume it's not fast, and we have to take a look at that. So what you usually do is you can go to the system, you will check the plugins, are there any retrieve plugins, whatever. If there's nothing there, yeah, you can trace it down to network-related issues. You will see most of those things in application insights, yeah, so you don't need additional tools. But yeah, the next step is when we have identified that, we can take a look at the code, or maybe we have some other processes like workflows, whatever. We will see that. So what we can do is when we know, okay, what's going on from application sides, we got a couple of other tools here. And let's take a quick look at that. Actually, this slide is focused on the server side only. Of course, we have some other stuff on the client side as well, but let's see what we have here first. And actually, there's no order in those tools here. Actually, the real difference is some of them are very easy to use. So in the beginning, you can use them and you will get the high-level information. For other tools, you need to do some stuff. Yeah, I mean, worst case here is custom logging. And this is a very common thing. So people start to implement some logging, whatever they log. Write the logs to a specific entity or log file or so some storage account, whatever. Yeah, but this is a very tricky one, because usually when you have some problems, you will see it in production, and then you see, okay, a specific value is missing, and then you start to guess some stuff. Yeah, and this is what we try to avoid. We don't want to guess anything. We would like to have specific information what's going on. Yeah, so as I said, custom logging is one solution, but it takes too much time, and usually we don't get the desired results. A much better solution is, for example, with Studio Profiling. We can see in a screenshot to the right. This is not related to Dataverse, this is also from the documentation, but here you can see the specific telemetry data from code. And that's a very interesting one. So you will see for every call, for every single line of code, how long it takes to run the whole thing. And of course, the inclusive and exclusive times and so on. So there's a couple of things here, but usually you can't do that, right? You cannot just connect to a Dataverse in all environment. That's not possible. So you have to write some kind of unit test. So you have additional efforts to do the configuration. And that's why usually we try to avoid that. Also things like plugin profiler. This is a possible solution, yeah, but usually you try to avoid it as well, because you need too much setup things and whatever. Yeah, so it's very hard to try to reproduce the issues from production environment with those things. And for other things like trace logs, you don't have enough details. Yeah, you will see, we can see it on the right side, we will see some stuff here, and depending on the log behavior and the custom log statements, we will see more or less what's going on, but usually you don't have the specific information what you need. And also on the client side, the last screenshot here, the browser developer tools here, you only see the call. Yeah, in this case, it's HTTP call for qualify lead. Yeah, and we know, okay, it took 17 seconds. So this could be a very interesting entry point, yeah, to start the investigation. But after that, we have to use some other tools here, and that's the problem. Usually, when we deal with production environments, you have some dependencies, and then you go step by step, and it takes too much time. Yeah. So, as I promised before, this is the preview. So that's a screenshot from our solution. And here you can see we got the entry point here. It's a very interesting one because when you have a normal plugin, you usually have one entry point, right? You have an Azure function or any other code component, there's always an entry point. In this case, it's execute method. And we see it took 9.5 seconds. Yeah. So here we have a very specific information. It's more or less like Visual Studio profiling, yeah, but without the setup. So we don't have the disadvantages of having Visual Studio installed and the other dependencies. Yeah, we can do it directly online because the platform is directly connected to Dataverse. And that's the point where we say, okay, this is simple and we have enough details. Yeah. So as you can see here, we have the code, we know exactly what's going on. We can also include the parameters and so on. So this is what we want. Yeah. And we want that with a very low configuration. So low conversion effort. So let's see how we can do that. But before we start with that, let's go back to the initial question. Yeah. So we would like to know, okay, what's going on if I update an account? And this is usually what I have to do. I have to identify the trigger. Okay, update of account, that's pretty obvious. And after that, I usually have to deal with a lot of different components and see what's going on. Yeah? Because usually I don't know if I update an account, okay, what are the triggers? So you use plugin registration tool, then you will check a couple of other sources, and at the end you invested some time, and then you know, okay, what's going on. Yeah. So in this case, I have one plugin, and I know, okay, this plugin will call also some APIs, create a task, and so on. So this could be the reason why our whole process is slow. Yeah. So when I've identified that, I can of course trigger the event. So I go to my system, I will update an account, and then I would like to see what's going on. Yeah. So this is basically what we want, and as I said, we will see that later in the live session. So this is the basic setup here, and the other thing what KPI can do, yeah, we just saw the performance part, but as I said, usually you have some dependencies to other things. Yeah, you have to identify the triggers and so on, and usually you want to have a documentation because it's easier to provide that information to somebody else, and you don't have to do it again and again. So besides the performance part, we also have some capabilities for documentation where you can search for a component and add additional things, and at the end you have the end-to-end process, and you can export it as PDF, whatever. But then you have the whole process. And very interesting thing is all of those things will be done automatically, so you don't have to configure anything because we analyze the code, the local components, and at the end we can visualize the whole thing without any manual configuration. Yeah, so that's another thing. And the third part is best practice analytics. So as I said, usually when we have performance issues, we also have some issues where it's best practices. Yeah. So in this case, it's a plugin where we have some stateful properties, and that's a interesting one, but it's not really related to performance, right? But when you do stuff like patch requests and so on, this could be a problem, and there's an impact to performance issues, but we'll see that later. Yeah. So this is the basic idea. We have a combination of different features, and that makes it pretty easy to identify the problem and fix it later and verify the results. Yeah. And before we go to the demo, the last slide before the live demo here, problematic patterns. And very interesting thing is that we usually don't have those issues on the demo environment or the test environment because many of them have some kind of flaky behavior. So sometimes you have the issue and sometimes not, and then you try to reproduce that, and that's a very tricky one because one of those things is usually the reason for that because you have dependencies to the database size, because you load a lot of data without any filters, and it takes too much time. Yeah, so this is usually only a production only issue, and also hardware resources, memory, and so on. So a couple of things here, but I think that's pretty obvious. We got two examples here. For example, the stateful property here, a stateful plugin. And yeah, usually we don't have it on the demo environment because this only occurs if you have parallel executions, because the instance will be reused, and then at the end you have undefined value for my property because you don't know, okay, which thread actually changed the value, right? So all of those things are basically problematic patterns, and you should avoid that before you deploy to production. And another interesting thing is daytime now. You should use UTC, of course, yeah, because in case of any failover scenario, you might get relocated to a different data center, and then you have issues with the time zone and so on. You might have at least. So there are a couple of things, and that's why we apply best pattern checks for a lot of different things, especially things related to Power Platform. But yeah, then the interesting part starts here with the demo. Yeah, so we will see a normal plugin execution, then we will change a couple of things and might see some exceptions. We also will take a look at the bad patterns, so basically the root cause of the performance problems, and a couple of things what we should not do. Yeah, so when people start to write some code, in general, you can try to run something in parallel, which is a good approach, but not in a Dataverse environment, because most of the stuff is not thread safe, right? So in this case, we got parallel. We are trying to apply some changes. So basically, we inherit the data from the account to the contacts and so on. So we try to do that in parallel, but usually this will fail, right? Because of the safe update call here. So we have to do it in parallel, and then we can lock it again, but this is not how it should be. So you should try to avoid any parallel execution at all in most cases. Yeah. So we will see that as well. And then let me switch to the live part here. I've got my browser somewhere. Yes. Oh, okay, cool. So what we see here is our platform that's Process Insights, where we have a couple of things we already pre-configured. So let me start with the integrations, just a very quick introduction here. We are connected to Azure DevOps, which is, of course, our source code repository. There are a couple of other options, but let's keep it simple. We got a Dataverse environment, so this is nothing special. I only have a normal environment here with some test data, but I don't have to configure anything else. Yeah, I can, of course, connect to the system via username and password, but I recommend it to use Enterprise app, because then you have the full control of the environment. And I got a example resource group with some components here. So nothing is special here. This is just a basic configuration, but we will see the setup later. And the interesting part starts here. Performance profiling. So what we do behind the scenes is we will load all assemblies, Azure functions, and whatever. And then I got a list, and then I can start to trace some stuff. And that's why it's so easy and useful, because you don't have to configure anything specifically. Yeah? We start with an account. Let's say, okay, I would like to see what's going on in the account. Yeah. So I want to know, okay, if I update an account, what's going on behind the scenes. So in this case, I started with this one, and I got my environment here. So this is some random account. And then let's try if it works here. I will just change some value, and I will save it. So let's see, hopefully we can split it like this. Great. Okay, so by the way, the reason why it takes a little bit longer is we got a couple of thread sleep statements there, just to show you how we can investigate the whole thing. And let's see if we can get something. Yes. Okay. So what we can see now is we got two calls, right? We got account and bad account plugin. So we are in UTC +1 right now. So that's, sorry. Okay, this is the default one. This is the correct one. Yes. Okay, cool. So I see the account. Sorry, this was my bad. So what I can see now is it took 5 seconds. That's an interesting thing. Okay, we do some stuff here. This can be ignored. So the actual problem is this one. We got something in parallel. Okay, and there's a lot of stuff there. So as you can see here, it's pretty easy to identify what's going on. I got an update here. Okay, so what I can do now is I can go to the code and try to figure out, okay, what's going on here. That's one way to do it, but it usually takes more time. So it would be easier if I can see, okay, what's going on after that. So I got the event is create account. And now I would like to know, okay, what's after that? Yeah. So basically what's going on here. Okay. So let's do that. Let's try to figure out what happens after account creation or update of account. So now I got a couple of components here, right? I see. Okay. What is my event? Event is create account. And we have a lot of stuff here. So as I mentioned before, we don't care about asynchronous processes. So let's remove them and stuff and so on. So at the end, I have two things here. So I don't need this one as well. And what else? So let me fix the layout here. So I got this one and this one, right? Okay. So account plugin, and this could be the reason of our problem, or this one. We have the same plugin twice, but I think this is just the name here. Let's see. Oh, okay, yeah, that's this one. So what I have here is I have my component here, and I know, okay, this plugin will be triggered by account creation or create contact, create account. Okay, that's one thing, but we actually care about update of account. So we can ignore those things. If I create a new account, this could be the reason, but let's go back to the update. So let me add those things again. And where are we? Here. So, but I think it's easier if I just remove the whole thing and go back. So we'll have a cleaner picture here. Okay, here we go. And we got update of account. So in this case, again, remove the asynchronous stuff. And there's only one thing here. So, okay. Bad account plugin. So in this case, it's pretty obvious, but usually you have a lot of different components, and then you have to take a look at all of them. So as I said, I can take a look at the code, or I can try to figure it out based on those things. We got a couple of violations here. We got parallel calls. We got some image manipulation related stuff and so on. So, okay, looks like there's something wrong with this class. So now I know, okay, after account update, I got this plugin. And after that, I got update of contact. Yeah. So let's see, maybe I got this one. So usually what I have to do is I have to check all of them. But in this case, I know, okay, it's contact update. Yeah. So, okay. So what I see here is I have the event and just one follow-up process. Yeah. So basically my process chain is update account, bad account plugin, update contact. And after that, I have this one. Okay, let's take a look at that. So what do I have here? Yeah, I got thread sleep statements, but of course, this could be anything. Usually you have some kind of retrieve operation, or you got some calls to some HTTP service or whatever. In this case, we use sleep just to show you the demo here. Okay, and yes, I can take a look at the code if it's simple, but also we'll see those things here. Yeah, so I got thread sleep statements here, which is pretty bad. So now I know, okay, there's something wrong with this one. Just to verify the information, I can go back to performance tracing, and let's enable tracing for contact as well, just to be sure that we're on the right path here. Okay. Oh, okay, great. So let me do it again. So what we expect now is that we will see both. So we will see the account plugin, which will trigger the contact plugin, and then we should be able to see that something is wrong with the account, with the contact plugin. Okay, so I think it's this one, yes. Okay, and the order here is not correct, but this one was the first one, and after that we got this one. Okay, so let's see what we got. Thread sleep, yes, and now we know, okay, it took a lot of time to do that, but also here we have the same problem. Yeah? So just to be sure, okay, we got the call here, and yes, it took a while, so that's great. So now we know we have to fix this one, so we can go back to the code, change it, remove those things, and then we can do that again. And that's the interesting part here. Yeah, I don't have to run any tests. I don't have to start Visual Studio and try to figure out what is wrong with the components, with the data and so on, because usually there's some variables. Yeah, I got the input from the user and so on, so I don't have to recreate the whole case. I will see it directly here. And when I'm done with those things, I can just stop it, and my system will behave in a normal way again. So, but of course, if you start tracing, there's an impact there. You should not do that for a long term. So you just have to do it when you're sure, okay, there's something wrong. Just start tracing, and then you can stop it again, because there will be an impact to the users. But yeah, now I know, okay, what's going on. I can go back and fix it. So let's see if I have any issues with that plugin. We saw that we have problems with our context plugin, right? So, okay. Of course, there are different ways to do it. You can search for it, whatever. But in this case, I know it should be somewhere here. Yes. So what I can see here is I have a couple of problems here with this one. There's no filter. Usually I should filter that. I got parallel calls and so on. So yeah. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to identify what's going on. Let's go back to the slides. We will continue the live session later. I got a couple of additional slides. So let's see. Okay. So as I said, yeah, there are a couple of things. Some of them are not a very big risk, but things like parallel execution or any stateful plugins should be fixed as soon as possible, because there will be an impact on production. Yeah. In most cases, you don't see it on the test environment, but then if you move on the final deployment, it will be an issue, and that's why we have those things here. And regarding setup and yeah, so as I said, it's a very simple platform. So of course it supports SSO, and then you connect to the different environments. I just want to show you how it looks like to do the setup here. Of course, you just continue with Microsoft here, and then you will basically set up the different environments. So regarding the procedure, I usually have a lot of questions regarding that. Yeah, there are some basic requirements. Yeah, you have to connect to Dataverse, because otherwise it's not possible to create or build the whole structure. Yeah? Because we retrieve the metadata, the data model itself, processes, and a couple of other things from the environment, and then we basically match the whole thing with the code. Yeah. So at the end, you should activate some kind of repository and also Dataverse. Optional is Azure, because if you only care about the Dataverse environment, you usually don't need Azure. But if you have a complex structure, you have some kind of enterprise integration via service bus and some Azure functions and so on, it really makes sense to have that. Yeah. Especially in big environments, when you have a very heavy workload, you should not do it within Dataverse. You usually try to relocate the workload to a different environment, like Azure functions or whatever. And then at the end, you have a complex structure. Then you need both, yeah. Because if you only have Dataverse, you just see half of the picture, right? So that's why we say, okay, let's include Azure as well. So as I said, pretty easy setup. Yeah, you can use enterprise applications or username password, but at the end, it's always better to use enterprise applications, because you have the full control, right? You can enable conditional access and a lot of other additional stuff or things. So let's do that. And after that, when you're done with the configuration, we build up a cache. And that's why we have different buttons here for update source and start scans and so on. This will trigger asynchronous process. And depending on the size of the system, it takes a few minutes. But if you have a few million lines of code, it can take an hour or two. So it really depends on the environment. But then you have the cache, and you can use it, and you will get the results in a few seconds. By the way, we also enable scheduled scans, so you can scan the system over the night, and you don't have to wait for the results. Yeah. So this is the basic idea behind that, and then we can take a closer look at that again. As I said, what we do is we capture the code telemetry. So we basically inject some statements to modify the code on the fly. This is what we have seen before. You can pause it and you can continue. So that's what we do here. So you don't need additional setup. So you only have to configure the integrations, and then you can start to analyze the environment. And when you stop it again, there's no impact. So at the end, you have your clean system again, but you know what's going on, and you can fix and retest it. Yeah. So this is what I usually do when I have issues like that. I try to identify the root cause as a sorry. As we have seen before, identify the event, and then you know, okay, this is the component. And then usually I check the best practice violations if we have anything there, and then I retest that. So in this case, I would basically remove the thread sleep statements, deploy it again, and then it should be pretty easy to do the test again. And so the last thing regarding our setup here. So I told you we can basically see what's going on also after account creation, but the update itself, it's pretty fast. So I think we don't have any violations there. So yes. So the question here is now, okay, do you have any other additional things or any other problems after that? We saw, okay, after account update, I have my plugin here. I think it's this one. Okay. I can move on with contacts. And okay, there's one event. Let's see if we have anything else. Okay. This one. So I don't have any calls here. So that's right. Retrieve of contact. So that's an interesting one. Yeah, retrieve multiple is a thing you should usually avoid, right? So of course I can check if I have any additional components, but for example, if I have a lot of them, it's pretty tricky to figure out, okay, what is the actual problem here? So now I can see, okay, we have triggers there and nothing else. So we don't have any outgoing edges here, so we don't have a problem with that. So now we know we are fine. The only thing what we can basically check again is there anything else here? No, we don't have anything, so we are fine. So now we are pretty sure that our problem was the thread sleep statement in the accounts plugin or contact plugin. Regarding integrations, that's a different story, but you can see, okay, we have some integrations here via service bus and so on, but those things are advanced topics and I don't want to cover them today. So now I'm done with the main content part. Let me check if we have any additional topics here. We already talked about that. So regarding register, so this is basically the last point here before we move on to the Q&A part. Of course, you can access the platform, feel free to reach out to us. So if you're interested, we can talk about that. But usually it's a pretty easy setup. So you can get the trial for free, of course, and you can play around a little bit with the demo environment, and then we'll see, okay, how easy it is to basically do the performance tracking. Okay, then let me check our questions here. The session today is not too long. Usually we have a little bit more content, but I think it basically covered the performance topic quite well. So give me a second to take a look at those questions. Okay. Okay, we got a couple of questions here. Let me check if we can. Okay, got a summary here. Okay, just a second. I need to go through this. Okay, there's a question regarding application insights. Yeah, well, that's a very good one. But I think I already explained it in the beginning. Application insights is a good platform to get a high-level overview of what's going on. Yeah, but the problem is if we go back to the slide here in the beginning, this is usually what we see, right? We see different calls, but at the end, if we would like to know what's going on, we have to take a look at the different components to get more details. So we don't see it here. Yeah? Of course, you can have some kind of custom logging concept, but then you really have always have a dependency, okay, what is actually being logged or not. Yeah? So that's why we say, okay, yeah, it makes sense to identify the entry point of the problem, but then if you would like to move on, you need more specific information. Performance profiling, that's going to support code components. Yeah, right now it's focused on code-based components. So we do support the web applications, Azure functions. So basically any kind of C# code, TypeScript code will be released soon, but regarding flows and so on, Yes, we have plans to include it as well. Right now, it's scoped to code components only. After setting connection, yes. So there's a question regarding the setup and how you can use it directly. Yes, yeah. So when you go to the platform, when you click on login, this will create the tenant. It's basically within a matter of seconds. So after that, you can configure the integrations. So you can do the whole setup within a few minutes, and then you're ready to go. Yeah. Regarding licensing, yeah, feel free to reach out, but usually you have a month to run the trial, and after that it will expire. You can extend it, but in the beginning, when you go to the platform the first time, you will automatically have the license. Yeah. Regarding technologies, yes. So there are some limitations. F&O is not included. Yeah. So it doesn't matter which kind of Dynamics environment you have, but as long as it's C# based and JavaScript based, it is supported. Yeah. So there are no restrictions regarding the different business cases. What kind of components? Actually, in our documentation, there's a list. So regarding the question of visualization, there's a list in our documentation. It's still in preview. Some things are not there. We will add those things in the upcoming weeks, but basically any kind of components is supported. Yeah. So also the no-code components. Yeah. Yes, it's an on environment here. There's an option for on-premise installation, but only in a very specific use cases. So if you have any requirements regarding that, feel free to reach out, but usually it's an on environment only. Government cloud, yes. To be honest, we haven't tried it so far, but it should be possible, yeah. So if you're in a specific restricted cloud environment, I don't think that we have any problems because we don't use any special APIs or whatever. So most of the stuff is common. As far as I know, it's supported. Yeah. Can export the documentation? Yes, you can export it PDF and HTML. Yeah. Okay. I think there are no more questions. I'll just stay here for a while to wait if there's anything else. Okay. Then let me go back to the last one here. As I said, this was a very brief introduction to the concept and what the platform does. Of course, there are a lot of additional features and use cases and so on, but today was basically scoped to performance testing. And I think we have covered all of the basic topics so far, but if you're interested, you can basically play around. Just go to the platform, get the trials. You can play around on your own. If we don't have any other questions, we'll close the session, and then I think we are done for today. Okay, great. Yeah, regarding recording, of course, we will share the recording. Usually it takes 2 days or so, and then we will publish that on LinkedIn and different channels. Okay, then that's all from my side. Thanks, guys, for listening, and see you next time there. Okay, and cheers. Bye-bye.